Hello and welcome. My name is Rob, aka Lantern Noir, and it is Tuesday. It is 5 o'clock, which means we've both clocked out of the office and checked into the pub, which is the term we will be using for the entire month of March. I believe we are in Women's History Month, and we are in the unofficial Irish Heritage Month. That wonderful time of year where everyone thinks that drinking green beer and speaking with a bad brogue makes you Irish. And with me,
Graybeard Tavern, and I I gotta wait for my heritage till October, so it's all good. It's all good. I'll drink green beer until then. I
no,
mean, for this month.
no. There's never a good reason for drinking green beer. Okay,
uh,
there's never a reason for green beer except when you want to mess with people.
mm, mm,
Which we did, because when I went to the Star Trek experience in Las Vegas,
yeah,
which was a thing, I hate to say this, 30 years ago,
I I have a
25
bottle
years
of wine.
ago.
I have a bottle of wine somebody bought me from there.
It's probably
So,
vinegar now, but
oh yes.
I brought back, and Ratty and Gear, welcome, by the way. Sorry for not saying that sooner to both of you. And yes, indeed, good evening to you, my dear friend Ratty. Um, I brought back a 4-pack of Romulan Ale, that
Mm,
wonderful blue alcohol that they serve on the
mm,
show. And it became a running joke where everyone new to the group had to have a Romulan Ale because it was
mm-hmm.
blue going in, and best described as when you go to the bathroom at a certain point, universally we would hear, "What the heck?" Because yeah,
Asparagus pea. Um,
yeah, it was definitely a thing. Nor green milk. Yes, yes. Green milk, that's a definite void. So, um, uh, my big thing on this last week, just to get out of the way early, that as
mm,
part of our inspiration for our topic of the week, in my opinion, from where I was coming
mm,
from, was
mm-hmm,
that we
mm-hmm.
wrapped Waterdeep Dragon Heist this week.
Yes, we did. I got to be in it, so that was good. That was a lot of fun. Um, I don't think it was too crowded, even with all the players. I think everybody kind of, was very polite to each other and let everybody speak and stuff. So
There was a lot of no, you go,
mm-hmm.
which I really respect. Arwen, who was also present for the
Yeah.
wrap of Waterdeep Dragon Heist, which was a lot of fun. It was terrifying to me, just the sheer number of people, and I knew we needed one epic fight.
Mm,
And one of the harder parts for me was when I realized you were gonna pass on the first obvious bad epic fight. You
mm.
took a really long time getting to the second epic fight,
Yes.
and it was like we
Yes.
got to hurry. I was almost like, I'm just gonna ambush y'all because I can't wait for you to like figure out this is a thing you're just gonna have to have. And there was no way, on topic for this week, I was letting y'all sneak out of there.
Well, and that's when I was like, oh, I had that torn moment where I'm like, I'm a good character and this is a gold dragon. And I was having this, and I'm like, is this supposed to be the big fight? Are we? I mean, are we going to be like, wah wah? There's dragon heist. We walked away with 2 gold in our pocket. Mm-hmm, and so I was like, I felt really really bad. So it was good that Manchun was there, in the next part. So old Archmage battle.
Yeah, and there's still room for it to keep going. That's the other thing I love about that
Mm,
campaign is that there's so many things you can do with it. It was a lot of fun, and we're flirting with the big deals. If you haven't seen it, you can check out the full video on YouTube, and the audio is available immediately on Patreon at patreon.com/lantern noir. The audio will be released to podcast platforms for public consumption on March 20th. So if you don't want to wait to hear all the grim and gritty details about negotiating with a dragon in disguise,
mhm.
that's an option available to you too. What else has been going on in your particular neck of the woods besides crashing my parties?
So we played Wilder Myth, of course, Sunday mornings, and it was amazing because after I had lost 90 hours of
Yes.
gameplay. Fortunately, Twitch still had VODs and YouTube, I still had episodes posted there, but we lost the characters, we lost the legacy characters and all this stuff, which was just, heartbreaking. So after the show on Sunday, Citizen, uh, who is a computer engineer, sat with me and we did a Discord meeting and shared screen, and we were able to recover. We managed to, due to his coding. I mean, we were opening files and looking for code and stuff. So he managed to do magic because, of course, to a simpleton like me, what they do with code is magic. It's Shadowrun hackers are magic. That's their own type of magic.
The day of Shadowrun is upon us, and
Mm-hmm.
I still remember. I've said this before on the podcast, but I'll say it again. I remember back then thinking, who in their right mind plugs their coffee maker into the internets and lets some hacker get into the network by way of the coffee maker? I remember that thought in 1989 when we're playing Shadowrun and someone goes, "Well, I'm going to hack in through the slave node, which is that it looks like it's a coffee machine," and going, "Yeah, right." And now we look around now, and
Yep.
and who doesn't have a coffee maker that's attached to the internets?
Yep. Alexa, lights 80% in the living room, please. Or certain LB individual that we know has all the places in her house named after nerd stuff. So you can say, Alexa, turn the lights on in Moss Isley, and the lights in the front room come up, or turn the lights down in Mordor, and the lights go down, and then the other room stuff. So it's freaking amazing.
Some excellent points raised by our guests. How is the dragon a curveball in a campaign called Dragon Heist?
Because we're seeking gold dragons, coins, dragons,
Although
like
that
that.
does make such a
So,
wonderful twist there too, because it's legit.
uh-huh.
Obviously, the Dragon Vault is where the
Mm-hmm.
dragon coins are.
Right.
And Les, yes, indeed. If you are married to a coffee maker, odds are she is attached to the internet because we all are these days. And I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. The internet has been over the last year to me an amazing boon.
Mm-hmm.
So awesome you got Wildermyth back. That's awesome. I know
Yeah.
you've been the most dedicated I've seen to that.
Well, and we even set up a thing too where he was able to help me create a new player, because you can have multiple players on the same in a game and stuff. I was able to make a new player and take the new start we just started a couple weeks ago when that happened, and make a new player that has all of that game's information. We were able to
Oh,
go into files and snip and bits and put in new stuff and make it work, so that now I can play both of those campaigns, because I don't want to, now that we've got new people and new players and new characters, I want to be able to at least finish that storyline with those characters and
yeah.
then go back to where we were. So it was very sweet. I mean, Citizen, he's been a part of my community for, gosh, years now, since I was playing Hearthstone. So yeah,
Oh, that's what I could have played.
it's like 5 years now or so. So yeah, and so it was really great to have that assistance and have someone just be able to just be like I said, in my brain it was hacker magic, and the Matrix, and anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Other than that, my old guard gaming group on Saturday nights, we had, and this will lead into our other stuff. I had to make a decision and had to ask a player to leave. So
Oh dear.
yeah. But we can get into that when we talk about campaigns and ending things and
Yeah.
that sort of deal. And then other than that, I played in a non-streamed game
Ooh.
with with Indoor Adventure. Basically, our Monster Noir group didn't meet because Indoor had a lot of personal stuff happened, and a thing that happened at his work that was like a big deal. And so we didn't play on Thursday, so we played on Friday night, and I got to play my gnome, my Phalos gnome named Muncha Cruncha Moonbeam, who is a barbarian. So he's a druid barbarian, and he's like 3 foot tall with green anime hair, and he's just an absolute joy to play. He's like a little kid. At one point, I mugged a teddy bear at a tea party and stole this bow tie. And at another point, I made sexy eyes at a gibbering mouther, even though its eyes were like 2 foot apart, and then looked like I was going to give it a kiss, and then and bit it. And so I bit it while it was biting me, and so craziness ensued, and that was fun. But that was it for me. That's it for me.
Awesome. Well, it sounds like quite a lot on the plate.
Yeah.
I am slide this week. I am going to, if we go Sunday through Saturday, I will have dungeon mastered 4 different games. Because we did the convergence on Sunday. Last Saturday we had our session 0 for what is currently titled The Bitter Victory. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to migrate the title to be called The Fiddler's Due. Because of just kind of like the way the story arc is like going. I'm like, I kind of want it to go this direction. And if the whole game is called The Bitter Victory, I think it's going to disappoint some players.
Right.
We did our session 0 for that with 3 of the 4 players. We're going to have to kind of, Jesse's played with me before, so I'm not too worried about her joining into the game. Yeah. This also coming, so that'll be this Saturday. We're going to go have our first full session.
That's the swashbuckly one.
That's
right?
The swashbuckly one. That's the Rob, run a game. I will run a game. I have a book. Scroll through TikTok. Never mind. I found my plot.
Yep.
I'm a little bummed that the woman who put together the TikTok that inspired it never got back to me, even with a declination. But she's the life of an internet celebrity, as such things. And then after that, I have about a 30-minute recharge. Right. And then the Candlekeep game is getting together. So there's that. And then tomorrow night, the neat thing with the convergence from our previous games is we actually just finished a story arc.
Oh, okay.
So like it was one of those where they had been pursuing this evil forge god, and they had been investigating his minions because he was making his own automations to go out there and fight. And they never actually unlocked the true story about how they were created before things just kind of spiraled out of control. So so that wrapped up, but we ended on one of those notes where like we got to the end of the session and we're like, and that's the end of that story arc. There's no cliffhanger or anything. It's just like, and done. Because they did what they defeated who had to be defeated, and they escaped the convergence event, and they got out, and they're like, okay, I guess we're going to watch all the commoners go start a new village somewhere, and our new friend is going to go off with them, which, because we had June, who's going to be in my Ravenloft game, was a guest star for 2 weeks. And so we brought her in and let her kind of, get a feel for things, and it was fun. But that was last week. So it's been a whirlwind around here. And I had all last week off for midwinter break. Yeah. So I've been getting up every morning. I do my morning coffee stream that I usually do on weekends. I did that every day last week.
I know. I saw like I would be at work and I would be like, oh hey, cool. Unfortunately, I cannot watch directly there. It's the bummer. It's due to the firewall.
They finally found the Twitch on my firewall too. I used to watch it at lunch, and I can't now because they shut that down. But I need to find a game. We'll talk about that on the back end. But I think I love my XCOM, but I think I've now hit the spot where it's like I think I need something different. So anyway, speaking of wrapping up story arcs, Sunday night we wrapped Waterdeep Dragon Heist. Last Wednesday, my Convergence group wrapped actually like a full story arc. They were, hey, here's a side quest, and they went, we're going to go follow the side quest. And then they did the entire side quest, and it's now in their journal as a completed quest.
Right.
Which is kind of a weird, first of all, that's a weird mechanic.
Right, right.
Going old for a second here. I remember back in the days of MMOs where you would talk to the NPCs
Mhm.
without there being like a dialogue box.
Right,
You would just go up to the NPC and you would type something and say, and if what you said was on its trigger list, it would respond.
right,
And then you had to figure out how to make the dialogue happen
right.
to get the information to do the quest. And the only way you knew the quest was done is you had somehow maneuvered the right NPCs into saying the right things and then give
Right,
them the right stuff. And they gave you stuff back. You're like, I guess that's the end of the quest.
right, right.
So
Or
like,
do I now have to keep poking at them with other things?
yeah, well, let's try. Say, do you have more work for me?
Mm,
Where can I go from here?
mm,
Are there other? It's like, and so forth and so on. But anyway, so it's the idea of wrapping a game is really fresh in my mind,
mm.
and that's what got me thinking. Let's talk about that for a second. What can we do with this idea of games that have ended well, games that have ended not so well? Setting aside the obvious, we just stopped meeting together because scheduling.
Yeah. Well, and that's that's we'll have to do a campaign killers or something at some point, that kind of thing. Uh, um, yeah. I think that it's what I have done with the old guard guys on Saturday nights is I've been trying to do like 10 or so sessions in a system and in a game and do it maybe one or two arcs in there and then try something else because I know that if I try to run a weekly for more than that, yeah, I'll start burning out or losing it or not caring, and it'll get to the point where I'll be like, my ideas move faster than the game can, and so if I don't cut it to like 10 sessions and then switch out and go to something else, my brain is already 2 years ahead, and if I don't switch out and then come back, like we played Impulse Drive,
Yeah.
sci-fi game, and there was this great point where it was like a great story arc hanging, time to like, cliffhanger, the end of season one, and then now do 10 weeks or so of this next thing and then maybe go back to it, or move to a new system or a new game altogether. So
And that's kind of like when I set out to set up the convergence. Um, I knew I was thinking in terms of a season at a time. We were going to
mm-hmm,
do one campaign. It was going to be about. It wasn't going to be even a full. I was thinking like maybe 6 months,
mm-hmm,
and then we would wrap it. And I could, if it went well, we could look at, well, let's do a season two. Let's do another clear story arc. Maybe you have all the same characters. Maybe have someone leave. Maybe have someone come in, and go A to B, and then have that nice, neat set
yeah,
planned wrap point. Which I think, looking back over the years, the campaigns that have ended due to scheduling often also ended because they never had an end.
right,
It was one adventure into the next with the name of, let's have another adventure.
right,
Okay, well now we're fifth level. We should go find something. Let's see if we can hire ourselves out as mercenaries and see what happens with that. Or let's keep looking for so and so's lost mother. With me and as a DM not actually having figured out where the lost mother was, that was just the motivation to go out adventuring.
right.
And then you get that like after a certain point in time, things just sort of peter because there's no clean wrap point.
Yeah, is so in high school and then in college, there was a period where campaigns were about 2 to 2.5 years,
Mm-hmm.
and but I mean they were like Friday night as soon as everybody can get out
Mm-hmm.
until Sunday afternoon when we would go and have tacos, so it would be like these, all weekend affairs where we would just play and play and play. and those would run, like I said, like, 2.5 years, and then it would be, somebody moved or somebody did this, or oh, now these guys are graduating from high school and they're off to college or whatever, and so then we'd change it up. Yeah, so that was the way that went for a while. I know that uh if Dr. Gear's internet is still out there, he will always say that he wanted to play higher level campaigns, and I am I don't like to go above like 10th level. By the time you're 10th to 12th level, you are movers and shakers. You are lords of the land. You are superheroes.
Mm-hmm.
When you get to that fourth tier, you get to that like 15th level. You're like, nah, I'm juggling the spheres of the cosmos. Yeah, um,
Well, and I mean, that is one of the big challenges for me is like I have a hard time conceiving storylines that are interesting to characters at that level,
mm-hmm,
which means I'll play in a campaign of 15th level. I mean, I'll be a person that
mm-hmm.
can do that, but trying to think of an interesting story arc that lets us explore a character, like have the characters explore it or work with it or be challenged. I was like, man, that's a tough place to be. You're fighting gods at that point.
Well, and that was what was good about, but so back in the day, modules were like,
Mm-hmm.
if they were over 50 pages, that was pretty crazy.
Yeah, you
They
got your
were
money's
like,
worth.
you had to go to like Deserts of Desolation or a campaign book to get beyond like 20 pages or 30 pages of stuff. But those modules would be written for characters levels 15 to 20, and so, if you didn't have, also then back then we weren't attached to characters like we are now. So it would be like, oh yeah, you would shotgun blast these characters because you were playing so much or so often or whatever, and you would just be like, okay, we're gonna be playing like 10th level. Who's ever got like 10th level characters? Let's do this. And you'd be like, ooh, Lord Garth, my fighter
Mm-hmm.
is like 11th level. He's good to go. Let's do this. And so you would have this pantheon of characters more than you would have this is my character. um
Yeah, and we have the comment about losing players to things like life changing. Like college can do
mhm.
that, and even afterwards.
Yeah,
Just lost my best to grad school. Yeah, and grad school's intense.
and stars without numbers, hey, sometime if you're doing a one shot. Great game, really good game. uh Old too. That's an ancient game. That's like an 80s game.
Which
So
just makes it a classic.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
retro.
Mm.
It's retro. What's interesting when I was in college, campaigns ended when the school year did.
Yeah,
You basically we had like two kinds of games we ran in college, which were the um, mini arcs where it's like, oh, we're gonna get together for a long weekend to play it,
yeah,
or for like 3 sessions, or that was the school year long campaign where it was one where
right,
you got together, you kind of figured out who was going to be playing on what night and with who around late
yeah.
September, and then you had until May, and then whatever you were doing wrapped. That was the one of the best campaigns I played in was a Vampire the Masquerade game.
Mm.
And the guy who ran it, his name's Joseph Wolf. He works for Citadel Miniatures now as a writer,
Mm.
which I'll name drop
Hmm.
because I can, because he was my DM in college.
There you go.
But it was a really good vampire game, except it didn't have a traditional like, here's your antagonist, go deal with it.
Mm.
He did a lot of what does your character want? How do you help each other if you want to get that thing? And
Yeah.
then each of us having pursued it. My character actually achieved return to humanity,
Mm.
or she reached Golconda. She reached
Yeah.
that level of like, I don't really need to do this vampire stuff anymore,
Yeah. Yeah.
which for her was like a major arc in that storyline of like, she was never really in on the whole I am a disciple of Cain thing.
Hmm.
and we got lots of good playoff. It was really well done, but also I think he knew we've got 5 more sessions, we have 4 more sessions, we have 3 more sessions.
Yeah.
We that's always that hanging over your head, a known end date. And yes, I remember when classes had different XP level advancements. I remember, speaking of the legions, it
Mm,
being, at least in my circles,
mm.
you did not just make a 10th level character.
Right.
You made a first level character, and then you found people to run enough dungeons that you could earn your way up to 10, and then you might tuck him in a folder somewhere.
And that's there. You're right on. That's what I'm saying. You had this pantheon of characters, and because one guy would be like an 11th level rogue, and you'd be like a 7th level wizard, because it was like millions of
Yep.
of XP out there to get to the next level as a wizard, which is crazy. It's
Well,
crazy.
I remember, I think was it third that introduced milestones unofficially,
Mm-hmm.
where they kind of said, if you don't want to keep track of XP, just say when the party has enough XP to go up a level. And a lot of players were like, what do you mean we're not tracking XP? How do we know when we level up? How?
Well,
And it was
and
a real scandal.
also the I don't think they call it CR then. I can't remember, but it would get to a point where you were not getting XP for kobolds. You could genocide every kobold on the planet, and you would get no XP for it. And it was interesting because you could see that was them like starting to want to put nails in the coffin of the where's that. Well, if we burn down the nunnery and kill that puppy, we'll go up a level. Um,
I want to say, I think third edition had the XP budget.
that sounds
I know
correct.
fourth did, because that was one of the things that finally got me
Yeah.
playing fourth, was the idea of planning encounters around an XP budget.
Mm.
I think second may have had something in it that started to say at a certain point you don't gain XP for certain things.
Mm.
But I
Yeah,
don't remember it.
maybe in the Power Heroes and Powers books or
Yeah.
whatever, splat book nearing the end when they were starting to try things for third. Yeah, because
that was also a phase two where it's like they didn't have a lot of, back in the day, and we're way off topic, we should come back to it here, but they didn't have tools for dungeon masters to plan potentially balanced encounters.
right.
It was kind of one of those where like you have like your, I think it was third, but it may have been second, had your list of suggested monsters per level
Right.
in the back of one of the books. And you're like, oh, it's a party of third level characters. Flip, flip, flip. Okay, so, and you'd have like 50 monsters to pick from.
Yeah.
And they'd be like groups too.
Even in again, last thought from me on this. Even in advanced D&D first edition, they had monsters by level.
Yes.
Charts. They had like random charts of, you're this level, well, here's all the monsters, roll randomly.
Mhm.
You want a wilderness monster of 5th level, and they were usually like 5th to 7th and
Yep.
bit into chunks, but yeah, there were lists for that. So yeah.
And I think the thing about ending, and it kind of like comes back to where we were, it's like thinking in terms of my convergence group, they just finished the module of the God of the Warforge.
Yeah.
And that was their 3-session, it's a thin module. It's not very long. It'll be on Patreon later. And once I finish writing the other thing up. But it was like, okay, here's your hook. They came across a roadblock. They rescued a girl. They followed her to meet up with her sister. They then followed these breadcrumbs into this big climactic ending. And then they were done. And the module ended.
Yeah.
And I think when I think about campaigns from when I was younger, the campaigns usually ended because scheduling happened, but we were always running modules.
Right.
It was so-and-so is going to run this module, and we need to have characters at this level. And usually over the course of a weekend or a couple of weeks, we'd run the module, and then we'd like, okay, and we'd all level up. And in theory, the campaign was just, there was no long story arc to it.
Yeah.
All the story arcs we had were like entirely of our own creation, if we even ever invested that much in our characters. Whereas now I feel like there's so much more about the story. It's a little bit weirder because it's like these are long stories to tell and there's a lot going on, and making sure that everyone keeps coming every week so that you can pursue all of these stories and
Yeah.
have all of this character growth. And yes, second edition had a chart for stinking everything. Some of those charts belong in the refuge bin of history, because I have seen the Kickstarter for some of the miniature lines that came out of those charts. I'm like, clearly you do not have a girlfriend if you think this is the thing that should be on Kickstarter. Or boyfriend. I mean, we don't judge. I'm just saying.
Yeah. The some of the other things. So plotting or planning to end a campaign, I think is good because it gives you the opportunity to, in this day and age, particularly if you're playing online, it gives you a chance to go, okay, that ended. And if there was issues or things that you couldn't deal, or you need to switch players, or you know, again, scheduling wasn't working out and you had a player who could only be there like half the time anyway, or whatever, I think that that's where working in manageable chunks of like 2.5 months, you know, or a couple months, 10 to 12 sessions.
Yep.
If you plan on like 10, then you've got a couple weeks leeway and you're looking at like 3 months. I started playing that way with it's now Weave the Tale and Counter Role Play. They do those seasons that are like 3 months at a time, and run campaigns like 12 weeks. And I just thought that became the way I wanted to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's when I did when I started streaming D&D. I had somewhat mistakenly, I don't know. My brain at the time was, so many people want to play in games that I had to set up a set. This is going to be 6 weeks. This adventure is over. This will be 6 weeks. This adventure is over. What was nice with it is that it grew into we got to the end of the first session and it was like, I didn't know how much I really wanted to work to find 4 new players. And the players I had were like, we kind of want to keep going. So we just kept going, and it turned into a year-long Ravenloft game.
Right.
The first 3 adventures were the build-up to Curse of Strahd, and then we did all of Curse of Strahd all the way through, and then we got to a very clear climactic ending, and I was like, and we are done. We're not going to go in and keep doing extra stuff just to do it. We're going to... can't count the number of times I've been mad for not wrapping up a campaign and just letting it die.
Oh, being called out. Called out live.
Shots fired. Shots fired.
Called out live. Oh yeah. But I had said that earlier, Kier, where I was like, oh yeah, you've always been the one who's been like, and can we be higher level? Because we have played 1 through 7,
Yep.
1 through 7, like dozens of times and stuff. So, yep. A lot of times, and I'm going to say this, is because I didn't have tools at the time to end things, and stuff would get weird or complicated with people, and it would get weird or complicated with people, and I just didn't want to do it anymore. I've said this for decades, D&D is a game, or role playing is a game, and when a game isn't entertaining or fun, I don't want to do it. And so there would come up with some stuff and this with that, and I will say here again live to that, the whole thing that just happened with myself and one of the other players was going to kill this campaign. I was like, okay, I am done dealing with that. I don't want to play it anymore. I just don't want to DM it anymore. And that's why I had to make the hard decision and ask someone to walk away. And that happened, but it saved the game. So,
Well, that's the thing. We always have to remember is at the end of the day, we're here to have fun.
mm-hmm.
And so if it stops being fun, and the thing is, it's always a weird spot because when you're having fun, you don't want to stop.
Right.
But at the same time, you don't want to go to the point you're not having fun anymore. When you get the group together and you're getting together because it's a habit, it's a thing we do every Thursday night. And, no one's really getting a lot out of it. The encounters feel kind of bland. No one's really thought up a new character no one's really like added a quirk to their character. So even the role play is all kind of pre-programmed. We know that when we have a random woman from town walk up, the bard's going to hit on her, the rogue's going to pick her pocket, the paladin's going to beat them both down, and the wizard's going to go, "What's the mission?" And we do it every week. And so there's this weird dichotomy, this paradox between should we end when everyone's having fun or do we draw it out until we're all miserable?
Yeah, it's the jump the land shark moment. You're like Fonzie on the motorcycle, and you're like, oh, there's the land shark. What am I doing? Yeah.
So for those that are not completely familiar with that particular cliche, the famous sitcom Happy Days had started a downward slide into the episodes becoming weirder and weirder because they were running out of story arcs and they were running out of actors. People kept aging out of the show. It was supposed to be a show about being a teenager in America. It was based on the movie American Graffiti, which was an incredibly popular and incredibly good film about teenage life in the late 60s, early 70s. And in that show, one of the bad boy characters was dared to jump over a shark tank on his motorcycle. And it was considered one of the worst episodes of television history, which then led to the phrase jumping the shark when something finally has hit that spot where it's like nobody wants to watch it because it doesn't even take itself seriously anymore.
And about that time period, I came up with the 5 seasons. You should never write a show when you go into a show, no matter how popular it is. You should plan. You should plan the show to end at 5 seasons. So I was so happy with the X-Files when Chris Carter was like, season 5. That's it. I'm out. And then people were like, but money, but popular money must make more. And he's like, not with me. You're not. I'm done.
Yep.
And hence it ended well, in my opinion. And then,
we had a correction. It was on water skis.
Was it?
I vaguely remember being on the motorcycle, but it may have been like he may have been out skiing. They pull him on a boat, and no one's seen it. It was a bad episode.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, too, is there's an episode where he does jump his motorcycle and has an accident. So I could be conflating that in my skull, too.
Well,
so.
Even Star Trek, they all run 7 seasons. And that was baked into it, from the get-go. And even like the original series, which only ran 2, was advertised as a 7-year mission. If I recall correctly, it was like this is timely. It has a set, this is going to happen. But it gets to that, like, I feel like there's that weird thing where my advice to a dungeon master now is if you see an ending coming and you're scared of it, go get the ending, have it, and then have a real talk with the players about how everyone feels about picking back up again. Because some of them are going to go like, we saved the town, we put down the evil forge god. Yeah, there's still this whole thing about saving the world, but, I feel like this is a good place for me to bow out.
Yeah.
This is a good spot for us to bring in a new player and whatnot, because it's just, they're hard to find. If you don't let the players have them, it's hard to make that enthusiastic choice to come back.
Right. And it could be like you were saying, they were just so used to, that's what I do every week. That's what I do with my Sunday. And they, You know, when you're growing up and stuff, it's usually the people that are, or when at least I was growing up and stuff, it was usually the people that you were around that were
Mm-hmm.
your D&D friends, and
Yep.
that was the thing. And I mean, you know, we had one player who used to sit at the table and read a book until an encounter would happen, and then he would blah blah blah, and every time he'd be like, "No, I'm having a great time. This is, you know," but that was his level of interaction. He didn't care about any of the rest of it. You know, it was just, now it's that I'm the fighter and it's time to roll dice. That's what I want. He's playing a board game and entertaining himself at the same time. And then, you know, we had other players who would just like start nodding out at the table, you know, because they were just like, no, I want to kick in the door and I want to do this thing. There's talk, 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 you know. And so, because they were our friends, that is what we played, you
Mm-hmm.
know. So
Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking, like, since I started streaming, we've had the 2 campaigns come to ends,
mm,
which has been fun. I'm thinking too about like our never-ending Shadowrun game from high school, which was the one that it didn't have an end. We just kept doing another module from somewhere,
yeah,
which also created some problems because I mean we were teenagers, we were new to gaming. It was the late '80s, early '90s. We didn't really think in terms of that, but it also meant if I made a new character, I didn't have any experience points invested in it yet. So if I'm like,
mm,
oh, I really want to try playing a druid, because
right,
they had rules for druids that came out in a later source book, it was like, okay, well, that would be kind of cool. But my one friend who had been playing the same character since we started with Shadowrun was like, oh yeah, you can do that. I've been playing my character for a year and a half. I've got 800 points of karma invested in them. Yeah, you're cute there with your little spellcasting 6.
mm-hmm. I'm
Um,
just gonna take this Kool-Aid pitcher of D6s and roll for my punch.
yeah,
You know,
yeah, it was definitely a game that would have benefited from saying, let's end the story arc. Everybody make new characters, start at the same place. If you want to remake your character as in an alternate universe, and oh
mm-hmm.
look, Nightlight is back again, but he's a new Shadowrunner.
Right,
That's cool, but to give everyone that kind of an opportunity to play with, the campaign that Mrs. Noir and I ran, we ended up falling to the scheduling.
mm,
And that was the one I was thinking of, where we done a lot of lore work, we done a lot of planning. That was the one where we had halflings as Quakers.
right, 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 right.
We had
Yeah,
Quaker
yeah, yeah.
halflings that had no sense of individual property.
Mm,
Everything was community property. You could literally walk into other people's houses and take stuff,
mm,
except for family heirlooms.
mm.
And those you didn't take because you knew they were family heirlooms. You know,
And because you'd grown up in the culture, you knew what those
oh
were.
yeah,
Mm, mm.
yeah. It's like, did you borrow Thistlefoot's measuring cup? Oh no, the Thistlefoot measuring cup has been handed down from generations. It was crafted by elves and blessed by dwarves. No one touches that measuring cup. Oh, that makes sense.
I'm just gonna walk in here and I'm gonna share your plate of pancakes. That's what I want to share.
Mm-hmm.
Nom, nom.
And thank you for the lurk, Anakin Skywalker, as they come flying through with that. Um, all kinds of good stuff.
My
Um,
eggs and my cookies.
how do family heirlooms develop at that point in a culture like that? Uh, Over time is the official answer I will give, because I don't think we ever thought it through enough to get to that point. We just knew that people had to have certain things where, like, you can't borrow this.
Mm,
But what it did was it gave us a cultural justification for the Kender need to steal everything, which we also kind of liked about the Kender halflings from Kryn. That
yep,
if it's not nailed down, it will end up in their pouch at a dramatically appropriate time.
exactly.
And so that was one of those where we were like, we kind of want to keep that, but we don't want to make them kleptomaniacs.
Right.
So we made them innocently ignorant.
Which is, you know, that works out and then it's amazing because again, I remember when they wanted to make the halflings like river folk in late second edition halflings splat book. They were like, okay, we got to get away from Tolkien. We're having lawsuits and stuff, so we're gonna make halflings these wandering river folk and and stuff. And so yeah, different.
Yeah, well, I think the Dragonland series. I think Hickman and Weiss did a very nice job of setting up halflings that we have now that are not hobbits.
Mm-hmm.
I think that you could put the two next to each other and go, "That's the halfling, that's the hobbit," and be pretty confident between what you've come up with.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
Mm.
I have not, to my benefit, the only campaign I ever was part of that was a total party wipe. Actually, I was never in a campaign. I've never been part of a game that ended on a TPK.
Mm.
The closest was one I've talked about. I think I've mentioned it once or twice before. Was the year-long campaign that I was not in, but I observed that ended because one evil character derailed the campaign in January and then kept it secret until May. And then they announced, oh, by the way, you've all failed.
Yeah, you had. Yeah,
and then the campaign ended, and he went, well, wasn't that fun for everybody? Don't you feel bad you missed the chance that you got scammed? We should play again next year. And everyone was like, F that. No, thank you.
like our one buddy says all the time, I play these games to be a hero. You know, if I'm not going to be the hero, I don't want to play. So.
Okay, so from Arwen, I had a klepto character once. I always leave something in trade. There we go. Oh, I like that. That's clever, and that's kind of cool.
Yeah,
and it matches up really well with Tasselhoff's constant. And I think this was true for most Kender. I don't think it was just Tasselhoff. I think they meant it to be a racial thing. His earnest belief that he didn't steal it, he honestly picked it up because you dropped it.
Right.
Because his brain couldn't reconcile the fact that he just stole everything all the time. It was like, and that gets back to the idea of like, we were like, how do you have a culture that's built around that?
Right.
How do you make that work? And we're like, well, maybe it's because they're not used to the idea of people owning things.
Yeah.
They just don't think about property that way. And the other thing we liked about our Quaker halflings was the idea of everything being decided at weekly meetings. We really loved that tradition. So there wasn't like you're being brought in on trial. It's like, oh, we'll deal with that at the weekly meeting. It'll be discussed.
Yeah.
And that was an element we kept going back to as well. Although we did have some good closures in that campaign, now that I think on it.
Yeah. So I think that nowadays it probably is good to establish and to say in your session 0, if that is what you're planning, is, we're going to play 10 or 12 sessions. Because I was heartbroken in indoors Dragon Heist game that I played in, because I thought that was a campaign that we were going to play that module and then we would play something else. These characters, these would just be the Tuesday night characters, and they would go. And yeah, I was just crushed when it was like, because somehow I had missed, he had said we're going to play this like 14 sessions or whatever until Christmas. And I mean, we did end up playing over a year, possibly a year and a half or more in the module, because he expanded it in all kinds of directions and stuff. But yeah, I remember when it was over, it was just like, wait, well, what we're done with these characters? What do you mean? Because it was one of the first games I had played with them on that channel, because pretty much everything else was either we're only playing this module, or hey, let's be a D&D group that was very old school and just, we're the group, that's who's at the table all the time,
right?
No matter what we're playing,
Yeah,
so.
well, it's like dork rolls, I think it is. I've our dork tales.
Mm.
They haven't been as active as they used to, but that's like they have their core group.
Yeah.
And anytime you pop by the channel, you always have the same one of the guys is always there, and it's just a rotating cast around him from within that circle of friends. And sometimes it's D&D, sometimes it's Shadowrun, sometimes it's Cyberpunk, sometimes it's some other Call of Cthulhu.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Lots of fun stuff, but just a lot of variation to stay with that core group. But I've always liked the idea of trying to like have a framed, because I also feel weird for me from the streaming point of view, asking for an incredibly long commitment from people. And
Right.
I consider 10 sessions a pretty good commitment. Like that's
Right.
3.5, 4 months of every week on time.
Yep.
Be here, be alert, be ready to be an active participant.
Yep.
That's kind of demanding, and that's a tough one to ask of people, I think.
Yep.
So I'm very grateful to the people that have volunteered to be part of it, because there adds a lot to it.
Yeah. Particularly if it's not like we were saying, if it's not, you know, oh, yeah, this is our core friend group. We get together every Sunday. Blah.
Yeah.
And it's like it's different when it's streaming, when it's when it's on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
That it just there's a whole different dynamic and way of thinking, because it just can't, it was your hobby in the past where you got together at your house with your
Yep.
friends, and that's what you did as your hobby. And hence there was no when is this going to end, what are we doing, how is this? I would have these like therapy sessions where I'd be like, well, that was the thing, you beat the demon, you got the book, da-da. And then people would be like, wait, da-da, I don't know. And that's kind of what I think Dr. Gear's talking about. He's like, so it's over? And I'd just be like, that's all I got, and I didn't back then, I didn't think about it. Or I would get so stupidly bored. Like someone would want to play a module, like a campaign book module. And I would just get so bored late. This is late 3.5, where it would be like, here's the box text. Yep. Okay. Kick in the door, fight the monster. Kick in the door, fight the monster. Like, I adore Village of Hamlet, whatever Nuln is called. Cannot stand the Temple of Elemental Evil. Cannot stand it. It's just
Is there anything to it besides
boring.
kicking down the doors and killing the monsters?
That's what I mean. There is this like overarching story arc, but you don't really feel it. You're like, oh, we're on the earth level, and now we're on the water level, and now we're on, but it doesn't have. Once you get past Nuln, it just doesn't feel like, because they even rewrote it for 3 to try to give it more of a connected, and the great demon will be unchained, type stuff. So,
well, it's interesting too on that vein. My Candlekeep group, we're wrapping up Sarah of Yellowcrest Manor. We're finishing that story arc mini module this week, hopefully, and that's been a neat group because we had planned to run all of the Candlekeep adventures, and I knew going in they were like individualized, and we just found a way to kind of keep that story arc going. But we've always had a really nice, neat. It's been a very good at the end of every one. It's like, do all 5 of us want to get together, or does somebody want to bow out? Because here's a good spot for somebody to leave because this story is over. And they said to me, we really want to have a guilt-free dungeon romp. We want to go kick down doors, kill monsters, take their stuff.
Yeah.
We don't want to think about why we're doing it. We don't want any moral dilemmas. We don't want to like have to suss out whose side to take. One, we're 5th level and we still have starting equipment. And 2, we just want to use our stuff.
Right.
And I'm like, sweet. So I bought the follow-up to Dragon Heist, the Waterdeep Undermountain, thinking, perfect. They can go into the Undermountain and they can kill stuff and take their things.
Yeah.
And then I opened it up. I'm like, oh, every level of the Undermountain is its own self-contained adventure with factions. and treaties and major NPCs and backstory. And I'm like, God bless America. I just want doors to kick down.
Yeah. So there's what is it? I think it's called One Page Dungeon. And it's a cute little site with all these free modules. They're links to people who've produced modules that you could just run for free. Yep. And a lot of them are very kick down the door, blah blah blah. Why are there ogres here? What do the ogres eat? Candles. They obviously eat candles, or adventurers. Yes, that's all they have to eat. And then at the end, you're like, "There's a black dragon. Why? Where did they come from? And why are they in this? They can't even fit in the room.
I have the one-page dungeon compendium, and it's amazing. Would you like to guest DM?
Yeah, there it is.
That might be a fun. Arwen, you meet. We gotta talk. It'll be kind of neat, actually, with the Candlekeep group to take a month off and let somebody else run an adventure. I can play in it.
Right.
I'll be Gerald, whom everybody hates. And speaking of people we don't hate, LB Hackemup is bringing over a group of friends on a little raid to hang out with us, and that's awesome. Thank you for bringing them in here. To everybody new, my name is Rob, aka Lantern Noir. With me is
Graybeard of Graybeard's Tavern.
And today at the Old Timer Tavern, we are talking about the different ways campaigns have ended. As we've brought things to a close, we've said, hey, now's a good time to part company, wrap things up, and all those kinds of things. But mostly, that's what we said we were going to talk about. I think we've mostly sort of riffed on the nature of campaign planning more than anything. Like I mentioned earlier, and it kind of goes into this, is that sense of the convergence as being campaigns. Right. I wanted everyone, for the players, to say, we're ready to stop now. Thanks for inviting us to do this. And I got to tell you, as a dungeon master, one of the greatest moments was about 3 weeks ago when I said, we're gonna wrap this season sometime around April-ish. So we should think about what we're gonna do. Who wants to keep playing D&D? Are we gonna keep doing convergence? Are we gonna, do some other thing? And they all kind of went, we aren't planning anything else on our Wednesday nights forever. And I was like, oh, okay, cool, not complaining. But like, I was legitimately floored that like these players had said, we never want to stop playing that. As of now, we do not see an end to us wanting to play this game with these characters. Right. Which is really cool. But I still like the idea of having those nice, neat, as we've gone back to a few times, that sense of where's a good place to stop? How do we bring in new players? Thank God we've gotten rid of that idea of you can't start a character at level not 1.
Right. Oh, yeah. I trying to keep a first level character alive. I mean, old red box, and you're like, I just need to keep a character alive through Sunday morning when my mom's coming to pick me up from Brian's house. Please, one of these 6 guys make it.
Well, that was like, I remember wanting to play with a buddy of mine in high school when he was doing the thing. I found out he was playing Dungeons and Dragons. I hadn't played it in a while. I was like, oh, can I get into your group? He's like, well, we're all 7th level. So anything that would be a challenge for me would kill you outright. And anything that is a challenge for you, I can kill outright. I don't think it would be fun.
Yeah.
Which, in retrospect, it feels a lot like that was a very polite way of saying, no, I don't like you that much. Flashbacks to 80s fantasy movies that had unashamed lack of logic. Evil guy is evil, so evil castle must have no visible utilities because evil magic.
Crawl.
Well, and that's the kind of thing too, where there is something, and this, what's his name? The DM guy, DM
Matt Mercer?
Nope. Colville.
Yeah.
He talks about the fact that everybody loves zombies. Because you can throw any kind of zombies at the party and there's no question that you need to kill them. And that's it. There's no like moral compunction about it. There's no maybe we shouldn't take their stuff because maybe they have a justification. It's like no, that's it.
Yeah.
They are the perfect bad guys.
I so I said this about the Phantom Menace is the reason they had a droid army is because otherwise you would have Jedi ripping through like a tornado, wham, 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 Cuisinarting people. And I'm like, you can't really get away with that. And, with the, just people flying to pieces. So it was a real good prop up to let the Jedi just go to town, to just show what a Jedi can do, and so hence zombies.
Yeah, and that's I guess when I started playing Call of Duty, I didn't appreciate the brilliance of the zombie levels because it's not just zombies, it's Nazi zombies. I mean,
It's a twofer.
Well, I often joke about how angry I am, and I rate it by what I am willing to punch in my fury. And my resting state is angry enough to punch a Nazi. Because I believe anybody at any level of calm should be willing to punch a Nazi.
Right.
And then it kind of escalates up from there. Punch a horse, and then my highest level of anger is willing to punch a puppy.
Oh,
like I'm so towering anger, I'm ready to punch a puppy. Now that's that's anger.
Puppy rage.
Yeah. So somebody made those zombies for a reason. That doesn't make it right.
Yeah.
They're bad. Zombies
necromancer.
are bad. There's never I don't think I've ever come across a story arc with the necromancer where I've gone, well, he makes a compelling point.
Well, in an LB campaign, I had a character who fell in love with the necromancer and nearly fought the paladin to save said necromancer and nearly got murdered. So zombies if the rogue hadn't helped me.
Zombies are politically neutral, an excellent point as well. I remember the days when hating Nazis was considered politically neutral. Simpler times.
Yeah. So what I'm seeing is campaigns end because you say they're going to end. You've plotted it from the beginning.
Yep.
You have DM burnout.
Yep.
You have player burnout and scheduling. Is there anything else that ends campaigns? Looking at you, chat, also on this one.
Well, I think thinking about where most of my games have ended, the biggest challenge we've bumped into, drama. Yeah. And I think that feeds very much into the burnout factor. I don't like coming because player A and player B always get into a thing.
Yeah.
And that I could tolerate it the first few times it happened, but I don't like hanging out with that group anymore because it's always going to be a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then it becomes scheduling.
Right. Yeah. You find the dodge. Take this off ramp.
Is that a reference we should know?
Steve. So again, it's part of that whole thing where you've got this, you get a friends together and you're like, oh, we're friends. And now we're going to play a game. And then you've got a player in there who is just, he just doesn't get it. He's either so old guard that, so we'll diss on Steve for a minute. Steve. That's it literally in our group. If you go Steve, people know what you mean. We were playing a game and he was supposed to be a minstrel, but he so OP'd, min-maxed the numbers that he was a minstrel, but he was a club specialist. And because of the way because of the game system we were playing, he was like, you warrior, teach me how to use a spear, because technically within the game thing, then I can be a spear and I'll get points to use a spear and this and that. And I took deathly fear of water because it gave me extra points that I could then manipulate this and the other
Sounds
thing.
Like GURPS.
yeah, it was very that way, and it was just everything. There was one game session where where a friend of ours got between me and Steve because he thought any second one of us was going to throw a punch. We were just, it was that kind of tension where, you know, you're just doing this to manipulate the system. No, this is logical. And oh, it was a mess and it was horrible. And that's the drama that will kill a campaign in a heartbeat.
Oh yeah, yeah, and that feeds into though that burnout
Yep.
that you can only keep peace for so long between people, and then you're like, screw it, I don't have the spoons for this anymore. It's too much work.
And Steve, one more Steve story. Steve killed a campaign. I was done when he came over the table at another player, and he's like, "If our characters die in this, I will beep and kill you." I was like, time, we're done. This is over, because there was no way to keep playing because Steve was going out with X, and then
Yep.
in the group, so the campaign was done.
That'll do it.
It just killed it. Drama.
That's an unfortunate. I mean, sometimes those are realities, and they
Mm-hmm.
suck when they happen, and especially because I think that's way more likely to happen with in-person games,
No.
where you start to develop those relate. I mean, I think one of the nice things about playing virtually, either through Roll20 or groups you met you on D&D Beyond, or groups you met through streaming, is that we definitely all come to the table with that goal of the game first.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very, very lucky. I think of everyone I've played with in the last year and a half of streaming, I have become friends with almost every one of the players.
Yeah.
If not, I would even dare say like good friends with several of them, where it's like people I can text and go, "Hey, I'm having a weird day. I need help."
Right.
And it's nice to have that. As the thing happens, and it reminds me a lot of the advice I give my seniors that are going away to college. And I say, the thing you don't do is you don't live with friends. I said, never sign up for a dorm room with your best friend from high school. And they look at me like I'm crazy. And I say, well, here's the thing. To be a good roommate requires a certain skill set. It requires a certain relationship. It carries expectations. Friends, it's a different skill set. It's a different set of expectations. Now, sometimes your roommates can become really good friends, but just because you're friends doesn't mean you're going to make good roommates. It can happen. There are exceptions to this where the relationship evolved out how it had to evolve. But for the most part, everyone I knew that were friends prior to moving in together had disastrous fallings out. Because don't move in with someone you want to stay friends with. Yeah. But that said, I mean, you can do it. My younger sister, one of her best friends was her roommate in college. They met through the dorm system. They lived together every year after her sophomore year, and they remain friends to this very day. But Lori came into the family by way of, I need to get along with Little Noir, and I need to be friends with her, roommates with her. We need to get that done. We can be friends later once we've mastered that.
Right.
And I think in the online gaming space, you see that more and more with that idea of like, well, we're playing D&D together. So my first priority at the table is, are we all having a really fun time together? Are we learning how to relate to each other at the table? Are we respecting each other's characters?
Right.
And then, hey, if we happen to keep chatting after all of this, that's great.
Right. Yeah. And you can tell so playing over on Indoor's channel, I convinced him to do a show called Nights in the Courtyard. He came up with the name, but I said, why aren't you recording this and putting this on your Patreon? Because after every session, we sit there for half an hour and we're like, blah, 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 and what's next? And how do you, so recording that and then putting that as extra content out there, because you're going to have that half an hour of gab after a good game, So,
Yep.
yeah.
that is good stuff, and I appreciate that. Holiday break, yes, holiday break can be really. It's one of those. It's
Oh,
that. Well, it goes to that. Like most of the campaigns I played in college ended
yeah.
at summer vacation because everyone split up for 3 months. And holiday break can do that too, where it's that month off, and then you come back, you got a new schedule. Maybe you broke up with somebody, so now you've got someone new you're going out with, and it's all. I always say scheduling is one of the hardest things to get past for most people,
Yep.
and the most of the games I've been in have ended because of it just got too hard to get the band together.
Hmm.
Coupled with the other kicker on that is the terrible paradox of getting a group, having fun with a group, inviting people to a group, and then as schedules begin to conflict because your group got bigger, having people leave, and everyone kind of going, well, it's no fun. So and so's not there anymore.
Right.
With a little
Right.
bit like as the observer going, well, you were perfectly happy for 9 months before they joined the game. Why are you sad now that they left?
Right. Right.
But there is that. What is coming up in the
Hmm.
land of the Graybeard Tavern? What have you got on deck for the
Uh,
next 2 weeks?
so we have uh Old Guard Gaming. We made a decision, and so we're still playing on that. We've got probably 6 more sessions of this storyline, of this part of this chapter anyway. Um, other than that, Monster Noir is supposed to be back Thursdays, 8:30 EST on Indoor Adventures. We've got 4 more episodes of that, and I don't know what's coming after that, but I'll probably still be on there on Thursday nights. So if you want to join us for whatever game we play next, um, Thursday nights over there is kind of the off game, non D&D game. So he's trying to do some other stuff. So we'll knock on wood. Hopefully, I'll be in that next 10 to 12 weeks over there. And then Sunday, playing some Wildermyth. We're always here, ready to hack and slash and play with toys because, well, that game is gorgeous. I I absolutely adore the people who run Wildermyth. They tried to help me to recover my stuff. They are always there to retweet what I tweet and stuff when it deals with Wildermyth.
Mm-hmm.
They're great folks. So check out Wildermyth, not just me on Sunday mornings, but whenever, and give it a shot. And then 2 weeks I'll be back with you. That's it for me.
Yeah, well, that sounds like a lot on the plate, and it should be fun. Here we're going to be tomorrow night. We've got Convergence again, and we're starting a new story arc. And I'm very lucky. Like I asked everybody on Sunday, I'm like, so I'm tired.
Hmm.
It's been a long week, and it hasn't started yet. Does anyone not feel comfortable playing Wednesday night? Because I can take a night off. And
Right,
all
right.
four of the players went, oh no, we're good. And I went, okay, me too. Um, but I had some inspiration today while the kids were working in class, and so I made some notes to myself. And I was like, all right, I think I got something fun for tomorrow night Convergence. Um, and then Saturday, I've got 6 hours of D&D
Right,
because we've
right, right.
got the first actual play session for the Bitter Victory, our pirate game. Then I'll have a break, and then we have another session, which is our Candlekeep group, which is also 6 hours of hanging out with Jessie, which will be really cool because she's in both groups,
No, cool, cool, cool.
which is really fun. And then Sunday night, we are taking the night off from Dungeons and Dragons to do a passing of the torch. I've invited everybody from the Dragon Heist game and the Ravenloft game, if they're available,
Oh,
to
that's right.
come
That's
hang out, and we're just going to play uh, some Jackbox on
right.
stream. And if anyone wants to come by the chat and be part of the audience, or if the number of us that can make it is few enough, even get in on the game. Because I'm always big on the games that allow for audiences.
Yeah.
So Fibbage is one of my favorites, and Split the Room is one of my other favorite
Mm.
Jackbox games. And in that one, you're trying to pose a question that leads to a 50-50 split between the two choices.
Oh,
So you're not trying to give the most popular answer. You're trying to give
right.
the most controversial answer. because you want people to go, well, I think it should be A, and other people go, no, I think it should be B, and that's your mission on that. And it's like the craziest concept since they
Yeah.
came out with judge-based games. And so that's going to be happening Sunday night, and then it's time we're into prep for the Ravenloft 1921, which will have started by
Yeah.
the time we get together next.
Oh, cool.
So
Cool, cool,
that will be up
cool.
and running.
All right.
Because in 2 weeks we will have had our first session of that group. We'll have had
All
our
right.
session 0. So we'll already
Yeah.
be kind of fleshing out where that group is going to go, and they're very much embracing the Mummy 1999 for the character
Mhm.
design and the humor. So
As they should.
if I
I
can
mean,
keep them a little bit, if they can be as scared of Strahd as they were of the Mummy,
hmm
it's going to be a great time. It's going to be a lot of fun. And it'll be neat to see another group tackle Curse of Strahd,
right.
just to see what kind of choices they make that are different. And we're going to do, if you've read it, we're doing the Lamenting House from
Oh,
Von Richten's guide as my intro to get them up to level for Strahd itself.
I have not cracked the book. I own the book, but it is one of those that I may play someday. Hence, it's on the shelf.
Really, Von Richten's
So,
guide? Are
yeah,
you sure? Because we reviewed it.
yeah. I only what I heard on the internet is everything that I knew about it was hearsay
Ah.
in other videos. So, yeah. What do we got? Some
Well, cool.
last minute.
Oh, just some people that are excited for Ravenloft, which is awesome. I am excited for that group too. It's going to be a lot of fun. I've hemmed and hawed at the idea of running another Ravenloft game. So I'm like, I just ran one, and someone goes, I know people that run like 4 Ravenloft games a week.
Wow.
Well, that's all they run because that's what people want to play.
Right.
And
Right.
I don't blame them in the least. I had a great Twitter conversation today actually with some other DMs that are all actively running it, all the different little things they're doing differently.
Yeah.
Lots and lots of fun of things I've gleaned from that and got to share because I rewrote the Tome of Strahd. It's not a little 2-page document. It's like an 8-page journal. So like the whole story is in there from Strahd's point of view. I also made the comment that you have to remember he's the bad guy.
Right.
Like we watch Criminal Minds a lot, and every once in a while I'm like, well, I really feel bad for that guy. He didn't mean to become a sociopath. That's a really tragic. Like I know that's like, but if you look at, and then you have to stop and go, but he has murdered and raped 8 people.
hmm
You can't forget that he's the bad guy.
Yeah.
So that's where that's going to be. So I'm kind of excited for that. That's what's coming up in our world. Continuing to work on growing a few other things. So a little bit of housekeeping on the back end. If you're a fan of the podcast, so if you're listening to us there, or you're watching us live, or you're watching this video on, you see what Interview with the Vampire did. Yeah, that's true. If you're watching us on YouTube, the happy hour at the Old Timer Tavern will always be available as soon as we record it and can get mastered and get it shared. If you are interested in other podcasts that are created over here at Lantern Noir, they will be always immediately available on the Patreon, and there will be additional opportunities to get them later down the road with a slight delay. I spent all of my Windwinter break converting the Convergence and Waterdeep into podcast format.
Oh wow.
So they're all going up every day. If you search for Lantern Noir Presents on your podcast platform of choice, you won't find the Old Timer Tavern, but you will find the entire catalog of the last year of gaming there for you, 1 episode per day until we get caught up. But if you're following Happy Hour at the Old Timer Tavern, well, those will always be available. I will never paywall this content because I don't want any of you to miss this amazing gentleman I hang out with or opportunities to hear my wisdom offered free to you. As they said in the old car commercial, just because you learn the hard way doesn't mean your kids have to. Way doesn't mean you're... For our podcast people, do you have a parting thought before we head on out?
Yeah, and I had actually made one for the topic that I suggested earlier today. So all I got today is know when you're headed for that land shark, when you're going to jump the land shark and start easing the campaign down. You know, you can see, if you can see that it's coming to an end or something's going to happen, go ahead and write it into the storyline. Give everybody a notice and be like, hey, we've got about 4 more sessions of this. That way people don't feel hurt. They let down, and then the expectation is there that you're going to end.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And on top of that, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, please stay safe. Okay, so if you're hanging out with us here on the Twitches, we need to send you somewhere. And it turns out a friend of a friend, HHatOTT, is having their streamiversary, and they're playing Jackbox.
Oh,
And from what I can tell, they just wrapped up a game of Split the Room. So we're going to
nice.
send all of you over there. Myself and Graybeard are going to have a little post chat, as we often do. I want to thank you for coming by and being part of everything we're doing. So thanks for coming by and being part of this. Until the next time we get together, folks, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, please, 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 stay safe. Oh, and tell HHatOTT we said hi.